Today, Anthony, I think we should just talk about podcasts and why any agency owner, business owner, real estate agents, anyone that's trying to get their name out there should have or be involved in a podcast.
Absolutely.
I think the first thing that I want to start with is just getting started. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people overthink what's involved in creating a podcast.
Yeah.
And it's easy. You put on a mic. You don't even need a mic. You can use the camera and onboard microphone and just start recording.
Yeah. I definitely think that in terms of like figuring out how to podcast, I mean, man, there's podcasts out there that, I mean, dude, like some of the most viral podcasts or videos are literally like, you know, being held up with like an iPhone microphone, like the same microphone that you use to make phone calls. It's ridiculous because it's not about the quality nowadays. It's about the actual substance.
Yeah, I agree. And something that I think a lot of people struggle with is, you know, the fear of like, hey, is this going to be well received? And most of the most successful people, YouTubers, you know, Instagram influencers, I know the content that they started with is garbage. And it's all about just taking that leap of faith and just doing it and putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, being okay with 10 likes on a post and knowing that, hey, if I keep putting out content, at some point I'm going to get good at it. And at some point, I'm going to be able to reach my target audience. I'm going to get to better understand my target audience, the people that are most responsive and most engaged with my content, and be able to evolve the content from there.
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple different things. Okay, so you touched on whether people or you touched on basically like people being concerned with how many likes or views or follows or whatever, right? So if you're watching this, I'm imagining that you probably have like a high ticket item, right? Real estate agents, marketing agencies, things like that. So I think for me personally, like if you go look at like my Instagram as of today, I have about 1,200 followers, right? But for me personally, you know, podcast that we do, it turns into short form content. And what's really cool, and you can envision this right now, if you are in an industry where, you know, you network heavily, right? So let's just use like a very practical example, okay? So let's just say that you're a real estate agent and as a real estate agent, you know, let's say that you're farming, like you're very deep into your community, right? So you go volunteer in your community, you have events there, your kids play in the little league team, you go shopping there, you go to the gym, right? So everybody sees you everywhere. And imagine like you just, you know, bump into somebody at like, you know, on the little league team, and you guys are just talking about little Johnny, you know, and all you guys talk about is baseball, baseball, baseball. You make a friend, you never talk about real estate. You never talk about your business or anything like that. And you just say, hey, can I follow you on Instagram, or we should follow each other. And then what happens is that one person who followed you on Instagram, now like you didn't even talk about your business, but because you're banging out, you know, podcasts and breaking it into short form videos and then posting it on Instagram, now that person like knows that you are a real estate agent, because people are extremely nosy. Like we live in a very, very nosy society. Like they're not, a lot of times people won't ask you what you do, but they will go do their research. They'll look up and down your Instagram. And then what happens is they find out that you are a real estate agent. And then next thing you know, they're at like their completely separate family dinner. And then somebody mentions that they're moving and say, oh man, you know, there's a real estate agent that, you know, his kid plays with little Johnny. Let me introduce you to him. Right. And that didn't take 100,000 followers. Yeah. It took one really good follower, right? Or just one personal connection where you're able to, you know, constantly see their videos over and over and over again. And I know this because I speak from like personal experience. So Outsource Plug is a multi-7-figure business, and 70% of my revenue, or of Outsource Plug's revenue, has been generated from my referrals. And that's exactly how I get my referrals. Just the way I explained.
Yeah, it's super powerful and almost really appreciated how much reach you can get with your immediate network. Mm-hmm. Just to, you know, you think about the conversations that you might have at a networking event or at throughout a month. Could be a dozen, could be hundreds if you're very social. Yeah. But when you're making one post on Instagram, you can potentially reach hundreds, if not thousands of people like that in a click of a button. And I've seen that happen firsthand for myself not knowing the impact that I could create. Every month I get a random message from a friend I hadn't spoken with for years, and they're like, dude, keep putting out that content. I'm inspired.
Yeah.
I recently started my entrepreneurial journey. I wanted to reach out to see if you have any tips. And I'm like, wait, who are you again? Like, let me look at your profile. Oh, we were like college buddies, and yeah, oh my God. Like, and I barely knew him, but like, he felt like I was someone that he knew, and that power of connection can be evolved outside of the limited amount of time that we have to actually engage on a one-to-one level, but you can connect one to many and actually see those results come through for yourself and your business when you have a very clear message and when you have a very clear intent and purpose in what you're posting about. There's one aspect about posting so people can build like, know, and trust with you. They see you as a dad, they see your son, playing football. That's relatable for me. They see me, going out, traveling, eating. That's great to post. Everyone should, post what you enjoy, what you love. But more importantly, what can you do for others? I think it's almost underrated to talk about and really put yourself out there on what you do. Because I've actually heard this one story. I had an agent that I work with, and he was neighbors with a seller that was selling his house. And he didn't get the listing. He didn't get the listing.
He's probably baffled.
And he was just like, what? And the reason why was the neighbor didn't even know that he was a real estate agent.
Yep.
Even though they were good friends, because he never announced what he was doing. He never, showcased on social media the results he was able to create.
Yeah.
If he had said on his feed and on his Instagram, and they had followed each other that, hey, I just sold this other listing in Foster City and one in Redwood City for, $500,000 over asking, and I got all these bids, and this was my process. Maybe that neighbor would have been like, dude, Johnny, I'm selling my house. Can you help me out? And so like this can apply towards everything that you already do for the services and like the work that you're involved in. If you announce your wins, if you share your success stories, if you invite others to collaborate with you on certain posts, you're spreading a message that you don't know who's out there on the receiving end. But if they're able to find you, and they will if you consistently post over time, you're able to build a huge foundation and a business around. I've gotten, from the few podcasts that I've done around growing Aerial Canvas as an agency, I've been able to get over a dozen signups for my coaching.
And by the way,
That's crazy.
Each one of those signups is the equivalent to like 15, 20 grand a year?
Yeah, so each one of those clients, as long as I continue to serve them, they're paying $15,000, $20,000 a year for
So basically, by him doing a podcast to a very micro niche, he's generated over $250,000 per year in sales. So I don't, or around $250,000, right?
We're on track for that.
So here's the thing, right? So we talked about like you not knowing what to post or how to get started. Okay, so I want to remind you that you should have the utmost confidence in your thought leadership, because I'm imagining that whoever's watching this right now is going to have years of experience. Okay, and this is going to be advice specifically for those people. This is not for somebody who's like young, fresh out of college, and just started working. So if you've been in your industry for years and you are afraid to actually get on camera, again, I say substance a lot. And how I like to think about this is if the audience is hungry, somebody who has not been working in the industry for years, when they speak, it's like they're feeding the audience milk, and people simply cannot get full off of milk. However, if you've had years of experience and you're speaking, people can tell that you have that substance, and it's like you're feeding them meat and potatoes, and they will be satisfied. Because have you heard that term, real, recognize real?
Yeah.
Right? Like you can just tell when somebody's faking it, especially if you've been in real estate for 10 years and somebody's coming over here talking a big game, like right?
There's a lot of fake gurus out there.
100%. And that's another thing. So like I just spoke at an event in San Jose, and you know, so when you are speaking on camera, you need to be 100% genuinely you. And even if it is controversial, what the word's polarizing, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. I understand that there's going to be a lot of people who are scared to be polarizing because they're afraid that they're going to offend people. But what's really, really crazy about that is when you are polarizing, when you have like a stance on, you know, hey, I think that, you know, I don't know, real estate, I think buying commercial real estate is dumb. Here's why.
Yeah.
Right. Like if that's your story, like stick to it. And, you know, there's going to be people who are, which I don't agree with what I just said,
yeah.
But if that's like your story, stick to it, because there's going to be people who are going to completely disagree with you, and those people are going to get pushed away. But there are going to be people who are going to listen to you and be like, damn, this guy's brave to speak that way. I like him.
Yeah.
Look out. Look who's out there who's most viral right now. Andrew Tate. Like, who are some other people that are extremely polarizing?
I would say, you know, Donald Trump. Like, you know, like
the most.
Yeah. Even Elon Musk, you know, he has his fair share of haters. And like you look at these big celebrities and idols and like public figures, and it's easy to be like, well, I'm not him. But in your micro community, in a Facebook group even, I'm part of a Facebook group of like 30,000 plus real estate photographers and videographers. And I'll post stuff that, you know, has clear intent of helping and just inspiring others. And even then, I'll get my fair share of haters.
Right.
And those haters, little do they know, are blowing up my thread.
Yep.
Every time they're commenting or, you know, being upset, they're creating dialogue where people can start actively thinking, wow, is this guy right or is this guy right? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, you know, experience trumps all. And I get a lot of people DMing me saying, hey, you know, I saw what you said, you know, like that guy, you know, making those comments, who is he even? And like, you know, like there's a lot of salt going on down here, you know, like, and people will make these comments, but ultimately the polarity and the conversations and just the engagement will help you find your ideal client and help you find and connect with your ideal audience. And what I like to say, your tribe, you know, like you're in business. I'm a big believer in finding people that you love working with.
100%.
And if you don't enjoy working with them, why are you even in that line of work? Like, why would you want to surround yourself with people you don't like working with?
I know why, because if you suck at what you do, you have to work with whoever you can. But if you're watching this, you're probably really good at what you do, right?
Yeah. If you're good at what you do, you can choose your clients. Mm-hmm. You can choose your team members. Any company would be eager and excited and throwing money at trying to get you to be part of theirs.
Yeah.
And that's the value that you can bring when you're really good at something, and that's the value you should continue to bring to your entire network by, you know, creating more content for social media. So if you're not already creating content for social media and you're an expert at what you do, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, and it's not just money on the table for you. If you can truly help other people, you can create a lot of value for them, mm-hmm. and you can help them make a lot of money. And, you know, there's always this conversation about money, but like, what are your feelings about money? Like, I feel like a lot of people hate talking about money in the United States, but at least with my community, you and we talk about money like it's, you know, we're talking about money like it's Pokemon cards and we're in second grade. It's like, we talking about it every second. You got this, you got that.
But talking about money, that's another polarizing view too, right?
Yeah.
And look, if you're talking about money and people don't like that, it's going to push away people who don't like money, and you don't want those motherfuckers anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So, dude, that's a really good view. Can I cuss on your podcast?
Yeah.
All right.
Of course. First off, this is not my podcast. Today we set off with very little intention other than let's talk about podcasts. Let's just talk, you know, and see where the conversation goes, because I feel like that's what entrepreneurism is about. And both you and I are entrepreneurs, is we don't know what's going to happen. We navigate in ambiguity. We are pathfinders for our team. We look for opportunities. And when you can just ask good questions and have great conversations, that naturally evolves into something great. And I'm sure we'll have bits and pieces of this conversation we have. And my goal is to hope to inspire other people to come in on this podcast. We can do it virtually, or we can do it in person here in San Diego. Or maybe you can invite me out to where you're at and we can just talk. And that's my goal.
Yeah. I think that people really don't understand like how much people love listening to other people's conversations. Like when I say that, like, we are nosy human beings, like, I don't know what it is psychologically, but dude, people just love being in other people's business.
Yeah.
Like freaking period. And also too, it's like, don't think that, so let's come back to like, maybe podcast topics. Like you're trying to figure out what it is to talk about. So one example that I give that I feel is like always really good. So obviously you watch Brad Lee dropping bombs, right? That's like one of my all-time favorite podcasts. So Brad Lee, if you guys don't know him, definitely look him up. It's Bradlea, right? Mm-hmm. So he owns a company called Lightspeed, which, by the way, I didn't hear about his podcast, I didn't know about his company for the longest time. All I did was listen to his podcast. And then eventually, like after listening to his podcast so much, I went to go check out his company. And then I actually put in an inquiry, and I personally might become a client of that company. But you see that effect there? His podcast name is Dropping Bombs. It's not Lightspeed Podcast. It's not like the name of the company podcast, right? But because we love the content that he puts out, eventually we find out about his company. And also he's able to add like new companies, and he's able to sell other people's products because he's built up this following. And he talks about how like one of his first podcasts that actually blew up was a podcast of like his janitor. Like that was like, dude, like,
that's wild.
Yeah, they were like literally pulling random people from the office and, just, hey, let's get on this podcast. And at the beginning of his podcast, that was the most viewed video or the most viewed podcast or listened to was the one of the janitor, which like, it just blows my mind.
Yeah. I think that's powerful. I haven't seen the podcast myself, but why do you think that blew up? Like what about
it's relatable.
A conversation with a janitor?
It's relatable. Yeah, it's so like there was this other podcast that I saw that this guy he was interviewing just a plumber, right? And the plumber had like this story of this guy who would work graveyard shift, and it was him and his wife living together, and the guy would work graveyard shift, and basically he got called out because the toilet wouldn't flush anymore. He tried with putting a little pipe inside of it, inside of the toilet, it wouldn't work, so he had to go and dig up the tank. And when they opened up the tank, they found thousands of condoms.
Oh my God.
Right. So and the guy, the plumber was like, man, like you guys use a lot of condoms. He's like, wait, I don't use condoms. So this guy has been working graveyard shift for all these years, right? They finds all these condoms. Obviously he's going to divorce his wife, right? His wife's been cheating on him all these years. But that's a story that is like, that comes like, it's a common person. This is not some big entrepreneur. This dude's just a plumber. Yeah. But that story is funny, right? Yeah. It sucks for, it's also relatable for some people, right? Yeah. Is it relatable? I don't know. I hope it's
I don't know. Usually divorces happen around money.
Not condoms in a tank.
Yeah. But, that's what I've heard, statistics. I haven't gone that far in my life journey yet.
But yeah, so and again, the whole point really is to always have people thinking about you. Yeah. Right? Like they just the more that you can be in front of people all the time, the better. And if somebody sees something in you, you inspire something in them. Maybe you look like them, you sound like them, you went to the same school as them, you drive the same kind of car, something, that they're people do deals all the time because, we're part of this. What's that called? Alumni? Like when you go to the same college?
Yeah, exactly. They'll do it because you guys like the same sports or you guys follow the same, political figure. Like it can be anything. Like, you like Gary Vee? So do I. Right?
So if you've been a dude that likes ballet, that's micro niche. Tell the world.
Exactly, dude. Tell the world. I have a question for you, Anthony. And you mentioned that Brad Lee with his Dropping Bombs podcast, like he doesn't really hard pitch his business. People go out of their way to look. I feel like that's a great strategy. I mean, it's in line with Gary Vee's jab, 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 right hook. Then go in for the ask. And I think Vee has waited over a decade to go for his ask, and only now is he saying, "Hey, I got these V friends and this and that." It's just like great. I don't think there's anything wrong with going for the ask actually fairly early on, like maybe even like 4 conversations in, or like. And I think that's actually something that's holding back some entrepreneurs is I actually coach a lot of agency owners, and they dance around the question of how do I get more business? And I think it comes down with intention. And if you have great intention and you're there to help someone and you're there to serve and you want to showcase, results, there's nothing wrong with talking about what you do and going in for that ask.
Totally.
And I think that's something that it definitely works for people like Bradley that already have a huge business that don't need to talk about what they do. But when do you talk about what you can do for someone else?
I think that's a really great point. Man, that's a really great point. Dude, I don't have the answer for this because like I'm imagining right now a real estate agent who like has like helped a couple who maybe they they were able to take over a listing from another agent and sell the listing at a higher price. Maybe they helped a buyer get a way better deal. They were going to buy on a one type of loan, and then they ended up getting a different type of loan that they didn't know, and it helped save them a ton of money. Maybe there's a story out there that you are so compelled to share, right, of a success that you've had with your business, and you absolutely have to share because you want other people or you want your customers to avoid the pain of not doing business with you, right? Because that people, like literally, if they do business with another real estate agent or another marketing company, like they will suffer. And I think that if you're that passionate about it, talk about those things and throw in an offer at the end. Because let's say that if, I had a wife and we were in the market to buy a home, and then I hear one of these passionate stories, I hear the passion, I see the passion, I see the experience. And then they made an offer like right at the end. Like I'm sure that I would go for that. So when do you do it? I don't know.
All right. Let's take your own advice right now.
Hold on. No. Listen. Listen. So here's the thing. I think it just depends at what point you are in your business because see, for us, like I've always liked attracting deals. I've always liked when people want to come to me and then I act like I don't want to sell to them, right? Because then they want it more. And I've always liked that better where people pursue me. It if you are somebody who absolutely needs the money now, dude, make the offer and be aggressive, right? So it really, really, really just depends, dude. But call me out.
You said talk about success stories. Tell me about a success story that you've had around your business. What do you do and what's your offer?
Success story that I've had around my business?
Yeah.
I have success stories all the time.
Yeah.
Like I just spoke at an event I just told you about earlier, and immediately like in that event there was like 4 customers of mine in the audience, and I don't even have to sell for myself, they sell for me, right? And all of those 4 people came because I went out and networked, followed them on social media, and then they reached out to me. Like I never pushed anything on anybody, right? So those are all success stories. And if I look at like, just those 4 customers in that room collectively, that's probably between like 150 to 180K per year in business of doing exactly what we're talking about now. Right? So those are success stories. And if you want me to go, into them and specifically, so you guys know I'm not playing. One of them is a moving company who had no idea that they could outsource, and now they have 2 virtual assistants that help them with their back end operations. Before they started working with us too, a lot of their stuff was on paper, and I've been coaching them and teaching them how to take everything digital, right? So that the owners don't have to do these, minimum wage tasks, right? Because prior to them becoming a client, and because when you become a client with us, I want to help you so that eventually you can hire more people. And I'm helping my clients all the time with operations. So like the owner of that company was actually like doing time cards and stuff for the movers. They were like doing these quotes manually, and I taught them how to move that over to software. right? And now they're doing all of their quotes online, and now the owners don't need to do the quotes because their virtual assistants can do the quotes. The owners don't need to answer the phones because now the virtual assistants can answer the phones, right? The owners don't have to dispatch anymore because now the virtual assistants can dispatch, and that's for a moving company. Another one is a debt collection agency. And it's a very niche type of debt collection. It's not like, they do judgment recovery specifically. So when a judge says like, hey, Brendan, or, this company owes you, and, let's say that they granted you $100,000 and the company still doesn't pay, even though there's a judgment. She specifically specializes in getting the money in those type of situations. Another guy owns a signage company, and he didn't imagine having a lead generation team that could call on people. Those are just like a few examples, right? Just so you guys know that I'm not like making this shit up. Like, this is real. So with that being said, the other client is a company that does, so they do education for like very, very niche tutoring. So like for kids with like special needs and stuff. So that company, they didn't imagine too that they could have a sales team that could help them rack up more sales of finding parents who have like these special needs children. And also we hired a Facebook ads person for them who has also helped them generate a ton of leads. So these are all success stories that come from me. And what's crazy is, like, for me, we're going to put this content out right now, and I'm going to talk about those specific situations, and somebody's going to listen to it and say, holy shit, if it could work for those people, it could probably work for me. And then they'll come to me. So
in a nutshell, what you do is, you've helped my company hire a little bit. I think over a dozen team members at this current point. Maybe more?
No, you guys are like over 40 people, bro.
Okay, so 40 people. I was gonna say 3 dozen. My bad. So 40 people, over 3 dozen people, and there's every role. We have video editors, administrative assistants, people that help with like sales. Every role we've been able to successfully find someone overseas in the Philippines, in Nicaragua, to help out and be effective at, and has helped with, like our margin is a services business, is they're like thin margins sometimes on certain months, especially when things are slower, and that's a must. With a lot of these. When you're competing with these big companies that are automating a lot of their workflow, you can either choose to bring in technology, which you also help with, right? But also bring in skilled labor at a really great rate. Just to give like a very, very like practical example, what's your average project manager make per hour? So our average project manager probably gets compensated, in the $25 to $35 an hour range. Okay, so imagine if his project managers who are getting paid $25 to $35 an hour had to do, and by the way, because your back-end operations team's huge. Right? So your average, so we'll close out here. Well, your average back-end operations person will cost you anywhere between, let's say, $8 to $10 an hour, right? So if you just like multiplied the bulk of work that those people are doing on a day-to-day basis, which is absolutely necessary, they're literally like piecing together your guys' marketing packages to deliver to the clients, right? And that's not even including the video editors or any of that. But like if you just add that up, like your guys' margins would be even like thinner. Right? Exactly. So what's the offer? You said, hey, you should make an offer sometimes to
sure.
The
so hey, if you are listening to this,
if you made it to the end of this podcast, we got a special offer today.
So basically, how about this? If you are a company who fits our ideal client list, and let's just say you're doing over $1 million per year in revenue, I will actually give you your first virtual assistant for your first month for free, okay? If you listen to this podcast.
Dang.
But you have to be doing over $1 million in revenue, and you also have to already have another employee as part of your team. That's all I ask. If you can meet those 2 requirements, your first month is absolutely free.
Well, that is a very generous offer to the listeners of our To Be podcast. This is the first episode. I'm sure we'll do more. This was really fun.
I'm stealing this audio and putting it on my podcast.
That's the whole goal. So the whole goal of podcasts is so it can be shared, in my opinion. Like, I don't want it to be my podcast. I wanted it to be my audience's podcast. I want it to be my guest's podcast. I I want a podcast to be so great that it can be shared with their whole network, and then their whole network is wanting to share that with their extended network. So that's the goal of the podcast, is not to have it be around me, because enough things in my life is around me already. I found that the more you give, the more you put out the right energy, the more it comes right back. And I'm a big believer in what you said, attract it. Don't be too pushy with your strategies.
If you guys like what Brendan's saying, make sure to follow him at Brendan Shu. That's like HSU, Brendan Shu.
BRENDANHSU.
All right, guys. Yeah.